All right, well, welcome back. If you've watched our last episode, the convince phase, and you feel comfortable with that, now we're going to move on to the convert phase. So, again, here with me is John MacGilvary, and let's move right into it.
All right, let's do it.
So, moving into the convert phase, you talk about the importance of being proud and prepared, specifically regarding the proud aspect of it. How do agents balance knowing their worth and the value of the brand without coming across as feeling way too arrogant?
Yeah. Well, being proud and prepared are really the foundational elements to any negotiation or sales process. And, when I say the word proud, I don't mean, say, or walk in and say, I'm the number one this, and I've sold, 5,800 homes and, those types of things, because it's not about me, the salesperson, it's about you, the client. And so when I say proud, I'm talking about understanding who I am as a person and bringing the right energy to the table. And so it really comes down to, how do you put yourself together? How do you value yourself? What's your self-talk type of thing? And I'll be honest with you, I start my days with exercise. Why? Because there's only so much time in a day, but I can get so much more done if I manage my energy. If I got low energy, I can't get much done, right?
Yeah.
But if I get a lot of energy, I can. But it also changes my whole disposition as well. And sometimes I even then need a little bit more juice, right? So before I walk into an appointment, I might listen to some jacked up music just to kind of get me going, right? I might listen to, Queen or something, Don't Stop Me Now, before I go in on a listing appointment, because I want to walk in full of energy, because I'm proud of who I am and what I bring to the table and who I work for and the brand that I represent or represents me type of thing. And it's nice to be able to stand on that and know that it's not just me at the table. Like I come down off my own high horse and get on a bigger one, essentially, and stand on what Berkshire Hathaway represents. Because I know when I walk in the door, just with that name, 90% of the opportunity is there for the taking, just because there's just an understanding that there's quality there, that the person that's showing up at the door is well prepared. It's just part of the brand image by itself. And then it just comes down to, do they like me? So if I come in with the right energy and the right self-talk, I know they're going to like me at the end of the day, right? So that's the proud part. And then the prepared is just what we all do, essentially, but it's being a student of the market. It's knowing what's going on. It's being able to answer their questions with confidence. It's if I've asked some questions in advance of the meeting, I'm prepared to address those questions confidently and be able to back it up with statistics if necessary or notations to where the information actually comes from. So that it's not necessarily me speaking, but it's other professionals I'm basically bringing along with me as like documented evidence to support whatever it is that I'm saying. And it just gives credibility to the whole conversation. So that proud and prepared, that's a solid foundation to build from there.
Right. So proud and prepared versus proud and prepared to show a level of respect to the person that you are sitting down to earn their business from versus to show a arrogance on I'm the best. So,
yeah. But the respect actually works both ways. It's the respect for them that I'm prepared, but the proud aspect of it is actually self-respect built in, right? I know what my boundaries are so that when I'm negotiating points, like my fee and things like that, I can speak with confidence and conviction, and I know when to walk away from the table.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I think it's really attractive when they see that confidence. It's not arrogance. It's confidence speaking. And that confidence, spells conviction at the other end, on the other side of the coin. And they see it, they feel it, and they want it. They want it to represent them and what, in their buying or selling process.
All right, John. This next part I think is very, very important. Before you even get into the house, you advocate for sending a pre-listing package and asking specific questions about home improvements. How does gathering that information beforehand help you use tools like AI to build marketing plans before you even walk through the door?
Yeah. Well, again, let me step back and just talk about the sales technique here that I think is really important to understand. And I liken it to setting the table. So when you are hosting Thanksgiving, and you're getting that table prepared, you're getting all the fine china out there laid out. You got the special little napkins and the napkin rings folded ever so carefully. You've got all the forks and all the knives and the spoons laid out, and the tiny little ones up there at the top for dessert. And you got the little gravy boat and the little tray of pickles with the little forks and olives and all that stuff, and the big centerpiece, the wine glasses, et cetera. When people see that, there's anticipation of something great, right?
Plus, you're making me hungry.
I know, and it is close to lunchtime. I get it, but you're making an impression.
Yeah,
and that's what you're trying to do before you even walk in the door. And the pre-listing package is that you're putting in there, all kinds of information, a sample marketing plan. Maybe you've even customized it to some degree already. You're giving them insights into the market. You're giving them some insights into yourself and some of the capabilities. Maybe there's some testimonials in there. There's all kinds of stuff that they have an opportunity to take a look at and basically, tell themselves, I'm looking forward to meeting this person because this is a quality presentation and we haven't even met them yet. And a lot of that preparation comes from what I call the pre-interview or the pre-listing appointment conversation. And when you're setting up that appointment, you got them on the phone. You might as well ask them some questions. And some of the questions that I ask are really there to help me be completely prepared to walk in the door and secure that listing before I walk out. So we've heard that term one-step versus two-step type of thing.
Real estate terminology.
Is
it a one-step or is it a two-step, John? What do you advocate for?
Well, I advocate for the one-step.
I do too.
All right, and I think the two-step is fine, but the two-step requires 2 appointments and a gap. And
let's face it, all the information nowadays that you need for that first step,
it's available.
It's available
It
online.
Is. So why go twice?
Right.
Why drag it out? So,
but what are the questions you ask through this process to enable you to set yourself up for that one step?
Yeah. So part of it's just building rapport, right? So one of the questions I'll ask is, how long have you folks been living there? Right?
Great question.
And I already know from public records that they've been there for 15 years.
Of course.
But I want to ask.
Yeah.
Because it leads into the next question. It's like, wow, you guys have been there for 15 years. It must be an awesome place. Tell me a little bit about the neighborhood. Tell me about why you purchased the house. What do you love about it? What have you enjoyed being there, for the last 15 years? And I'm getting some insights into how I'm going to market this property because it's telling me about the lifestyle. And it's so important to understand the lifestyle because I can start to put together the marketing materials that I can put into my pre-listing package and send over there. Or at least if it didn't go in the pre-listing package, I can bring out with me to show them how I've already thought about marketing their home and why. I'm already getting a picture of who the buyer is going to be. But then I'll ask other questions too, like, so you've been there for 15 years. What types of improvements have you made to the home? And
where does that bring out?
Well, it tells me what the condition is, right?
Yeah.
Because public records are only going to tell me square footage, and if I look back in the MLS, I might be able to find out, what it looked like 15 years ago.
Sure.
Right? But maybe they've repainted the house, maybe they've put in new flooring, maybe they've upgraded the bathroom, the kitchen, those types of things. And I can say, oh, tell me a little bit more about the kitchen upgrades that you did. Oh, well, we put in quartz countertops and high-end appliances. Oh, what brand, And just engaging with them. Wow, that sounds like you put an awful lot into it. How much did that cost? Oh, well, we spent $80,000. All right, that gives me a picture, right, of the type of improvements that they've made. And also what they might be expecting for value out of that, right? And then I'll always end with a question, should you stay there for another couple of years or so? What are some of the other improvements that you would like to make to the house? Or do you feel that it needs to be made?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what am I uncovering there?
You're uncovering what
What's
potentially could be wrong with the house, right?
Yeah. So if they'll usually say, well, probably in the next couple of years we need to replace the roof.
Yeah.
Or in a couple of years we'll probably need to replace the furnace or something to that effect. I know everything I need to know about the house other than what it smells like.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, right? And I can always make an adjustment on the fly if it smells really bad, right? But and that's not really all that common anyways for a house to smell horribly bad. But I can walk in that door completely confident of the value of the home, how I'm going to market it, who the buyers are going to be. I can put all the marketing materials together. So all they have to do, as Jimmy Burgess would say, is just review some of the materials I've put together and ask them what changes they might like to make, right? And they're already involved in the process. I've got them involved in the selling of their home already. They're going to sign the documents.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've all had that seller who asks, and this is probably one of the most common questions we get, what's your commission, John? The second you walk through the door, and you have a certain methodology, you call it putting it in the parking lot. So tell us how you put it in the parking lot. How does that script work?
Yeah. Well, I've been asked that question, what do you charge for commission? On the phone, on the very first phone conversation.
Oh, yeah.
I've been asked as I'm coming through the door. I've been asked as we're walking through the home, trying to admire the value of all the improvements that they've made. And here's the thing. We all know we're going to be asked the question.
So you might as well be prepared
You might as well be prepared for it. And I think in a perfect world, if you do everything well, the topic of commission actually doesn't come up until they're starting to sign the document. And even then, sometimes they'll just sign it. Then you get a 10 out of 10 on your presentation, right? But it's going to come up. And the way I like to address it is really with two sales techniques. One is called putting it in the parking lot, which is really basically acknowledging how important it is to address their question, but basically parking it over here until we can address some other things. I find that it's really effective if you combine it with a sales technique, which I call pique your curiosity, or we've all heard the term curiosity killed the cat, right? And it's really simple. The dialogue's very simple. All you have to really do is just say, I understand how important that is to you. Let me ask you a question. Do you know how commission works? 99% of the time, they're going to say, maybe a little, right? And say, you know what? You actually have much more control over it than you might realize. And I'm looking forward to sharing that with you. What I'd like to do, though, is I'd like to finish touring the home and then talk a little bit about the value of your home and some of the marketing approaches. And then we'll get right to that in detail. Fair?
Absolutely.
No one in my 23 years of being in this business has ever said, that is totally unfair. I want to hear about it right now.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, if someone said, I need to know about it right now before you even come over here to see my home.
They're probably not worth doing business with, right?
If you're not starting off on the right foot on day 0, can you imagine what day 89 feels like?
Terrible.
Right? So.
Terrible. All right, great. That's an awesome technique. We should all commit that to memory and utilize that. So, all right, you get to the point where now you have to address the question.
Right.
And you put it in the parking lot. So you go pull it back out of the parking lot. How do you address it?
Yeah, well, it's great. So you've gone through the opportunity, you've had the opportunity to now talk about pricing and the marketing. You've laid out all the value that you bring to the table. And now you're
their heads are all nodding.
Their heads are all nodding.
They love what you're doing, John.
Yep. So all you really have to do is just say, this is what I charge to market your home. And what you get to decide, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, is what would you like to offer that agent that represents the buyer or brings the buyer?
No, I mean, you know, price, velocity of the sale, how quickly it will sell, the attractiveness of the property. Those are all things that factor into it as well, right?
It does, and it's factoring into the business decision that I'm making for myself,
Right.
right? If the seller is completely unrealistic, but I still feel as though it's worth having the conversation and putting the property on the market because I can, get the price adjustments that I need, at the right times and things like that.
Do you ever stage your price adjustments?
I do.
Yeah. How do you do that?
Yeah.
What's your methodology behind it?
Well, that's a whole pricing strategy conversation. So when you are, in that listing appointment and you're discussing your marketing proposal, pricing it's a strategy. It's one component of the marketing of the home. And if you just come in with a price, I think you're putting yourself in too tight of a box. It's important before you disclose price to understand enough about their motivations and their comfort for different pricing strategies. So I usually say, let's talk pricing strategy. Let me give you, there's actually 3 strategies. Actually, there's 4. But there's 3 strategies that actually make sense. And the first strategy is to price the property right where the data tells you it should be. If a bank appraiser was to come in and evaluate the price of your home, or the value of your home, they would say it's right here. That's one strategy, and a lot of people like it because it feels safe. But there are 2 other strategies worth considering. And one is to go a little bit below that, because in a market like this where there's a lot of demand, that oftentimes can bring a higher percentage of people into the property.
Yeah.
And then
seems counterintuitive to the seller.
It does. But it creates
works,
anxiety, right?
Yeah.
Amongst the buyers.
Yeah.
And then they'll start bidding the price up, possibly, right? But there's risk in it. You could go lower and you might not get the reaction that you hope the market will provide. And then it's kind of hard to go up from there. But there's another strategy, which is called retail pricing strategy, which is pricing it a little bit above the market in hopes of capturing that opportunity buyer that just has to have it now, right? However, with anything that you price at retail, a lot of people won't pay retail. They'll wait till it goes on sale.
Goes on sale, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we do the retail pricing strategy, we also have to come up with the sale price and the sale date. And the sale date is typically 10 days after we go live on the market, because that 10 days is kind of the honeymoon period to draw out that opportunity buyer. So which strategy is most appealing to you? And then oftentimes they go, what about that 4th strategy? And I'll go, well, that strategy is to price it so high that the only houses that sell are all the ones around you. So it just brings a little humor into the conversation.
Absolutely.
But it refocuses them. And then the thing is, once they've chosen the strategy, then I can present a price.
Awesome. Okay, so you suggest asking, who else are they speaking with? What's your competition?
Yeah. So early on in the conversation, we've had a chance to sit down at the table. I'll ask, have you spoken to any other agents? Might be one question that I'll ask. Or another question I'll ask in conjunction with that is, have you ever sold a house before? And the reason why I ask that is I want to understand what's important to them. What kind of experiences have they had? What did they like? What did they not like?
So you're digging into it a little bit.
Yes, because I want to understand. I may understand their motivations for selling at this point, and that's very important. But if I don't understand what's important to them, I could talk for 2 or 3 hours about all these wonderful things that we can do, but that's a futile effort. You're going to lose them after 15 minutes. But if I can dial into what's most important to you, then I've addressed the most important things, right?
Right.
And hopefully done that well. So if I was asking who else they spoke to, I would say, so what have you heard that you liked? Well, I really liked that they were going to take 60 pictures of the property, and they were going to bring in this professional photographer, and they were going to do drone shots and floor plans and all kinds of stuff. And I said, yeah, that sounds wonderful. What else? And they'll say, Well, I like the pricing that they came up with on the house, and what didn't you hear that you were hoping to hear? Well, they never really talked about how they were going to follow up with me or communication or whatever the case might be. Maybe they didn't talk about, I don't know, they didn't seem to be all that thrilled with the improvements that we've made with the house, right?
Yeah.
So I can
So
start
you
to
know
see
what
some
you
of the
need to focus
sensitivities.
in on, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you do that, you can take the things that they really liked and you can use that as an opportunity to differentiate yourself. So when they say 60 pictures and video and drone shots and all that type of stuff, just say, yeah, most quality agents will do that today. But here's the difference. Where does curb appeal begin? And they'll go, probably online. And I'll go, bingo. You want to know why? Because if they don't love your house online, they're never going to come to the end of your driveway. But here's the thing. 60 pictures and drone shots isn't going to get them in your driveway. Because people buy community and lifestyle first before they buy your home. So we're not just going to take pictures and drone shots. We're going to tell a story. We're going to invite them into the home so that they can see themselves, envision themselves living there before they actually come to the end of your driveway. They're coming with the expectation that they want to own it. That's how you capture that opportunity buyer. That's how you get more for your home. Right? And then things like communication. Let's say they had sold a home before and they weren't interviewing the previous agent that sold in the house, right? And I'll say, why is that? And they said, well, they said that they would follow up with us, but we felt like we always had to call them to get information.
Right.
Now, if I just responded back and said, well, I'm a really good communicator, and I'm going to follow up with you every Friday at 2 o'clock and give you a complete rundown of what's happened this past week and what we're planning on doing next week.
Especially if you don't intend to follow through with that.
Well, you're putting yourself in a box, right?
Right.
You're bounding yourself, and it might not be practical.
Right.
But I can also envision that the client will say, that's exactly what my last agent said.
9 times out of 10,
Yeah.
right?
Now dig yourself out of that hole.
Yeah.
So there is another sales technique here, which I think is really important to understand. It's a psychological one.
Yeah.
And it's most of us taken a psychology 101 class, and we know that the brain is divided between the left brain and the right brain.
Right.
The left brain processes facts and figures and is very logical, which means if you just give it facts and figures, it can very easily logically discount you and destroy you, right? On the other side of the brain is more the abstract, the stories, the pictures, imagery, right? If you don't speak to both sides of the brain, you're not actually going to the consumer is not going to see whatever you say as being relatable to them, or not necessarily. In fact, you're forcing them to evaluate it on the right side of their brain. And they're not going to go there unless you bring them there. So you might as well lead them there. So if I was talking about communication, and this is what I think is kind of fun about this operating in that side of the brain, is I would say, as I drove through this neighborhood, I saw a lot of people out walking. It seems like a great neighborhood. Oh, yeah, we walk all the time. I bet you do. Let me ask you a question. Do you have anyone in the neighborhood that's kind of like knows what everybody's doing, the nosy neighbor? Oh, yeah, that's Betty up the street. Here's the thing. When you run into Betty and she asks you how the sale of your house is going on, you'll never have to make things up. That's how important communication is to me.
Perfect.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Because that's my reputation out there,
Yeah.
right? You're a reflection of it.
So you're kind of putting them into the position, you're satisfying their concern, they can visualize it. Yeah.
Makes
you've
them just
addressed
feel
it.
more comfortable,
Right.
right? And on the good points, they can see the difference that I bring to it. It's not just pictures and drone shots. It's, I'm going to be telling a story. I'm selling your house, selling the story, the lifestyle, et cetera. Just feels better, right?
Right. So that pretty much wraps up our convert phase, although there's so much more to it. And I hope you've taken away from this that you need to really it's kind of practicing and understanding and driving home the questions you need to ask to be prepared to set yourself up properly for the next phase, which is the close phase. So we'll see you there.